I'm going to tell you a little bit about Amazon.com, a little bit of the story of sort of how it came to be. The company was conceived in the spring of 1994. I came across a startling fact. In the spring of 94, web usage was growing at 2,300% a year. Now you have to keep in mind, human beings aren't good at understanding exponential growth. It's just not something we see in our everyday life. But things don't grow this fast outside of petri dishes. It just doesn't happen. And when I saw this, I said, okay, what's a business plan that might make sense in the context of that growth? I made a list of 20 different products that you might be able to sell online. I was looking for the first best product. And I chose books for lots of different reasons, but one primary reason, and that is that there are more items in the book space than there are items in any other category by far.
What's up everybody and welcome back. I've been super excited to make this video and share this information with you guys. I know a lot of people are Amazon stockholders, and since the share price has breached 3,000, are wondering if you should hold or sell those shares. On the flip side, there's other people who haven't bought into the stock and don't really want to miss the boat, but since it's over 3,000 now, is it really a good time to buy Amazon stock? And it's a very good time to ask that question. So I've personally been an Amazon stockholder for years, and it's seemingly been growing with nothing able to stop this massive growth. If I hold a stock, I do really deep research and analysis, and in this case with Amazon, as is the case with all other stocks I hold like Tesla, Google, Facebook, Invitae, and many others, it takes a long time to get that research done. And that's really the information I want to share with you guys. Now the reason I singled out Amazon specifically is because it's a very unique stock, and that's why it's growing so much. When researching a company and whether it makes sense to invest in that stock, it's common to look at the fundamentals, profits, losses, revenue, all the obvious things. But some businesses have something special, and I think some companies that fall into that realm for me are places like Netflix, Tesla, and most especially Amazon. There's so much more to look at with Amazon before investing in it and deciding whether to hold your stock. And that's really the information I want to go through in this video. I don't find a lot of this information online, and I think this is really the key details as to why Amazon is and keeps growing. So Amazon stock is sitting at over $3,000 today, up over 75% just this year, and over 350% over the last 5 years. It does seem like it's impossible for it to continue growing, but somehow it just doesn't stop. So due to this, I've looked into the company again, and especially into more than just the financials. Like I mentioned, it's clear to me that there's some special source, and whether I keep my Amazon stock or whether I buy even more is going to depend on the company's philosophy, or mantra if you will, more than just the bottom line. We know the bottom line is great, and after almost 3 decades of success, we know the company knows how to deal with its finances. So what is this special source? This time around, while I've been doing my research on Amazon, I've been taking notes and following my process. And it's this information I'll be sharing with you in this video. If you like content around finances, stock investments, financial freedom, technology, and also information on businesses like Amazon and Tesla, please subscribe for future content. Also, please like this video for the almighty YouTube algorithm so others can benefit from it too. That being said, let's dive into Amazon and see if it'll continue to make us crazy amounts of money. Let's start with some background. It's no secret that Amazon is one of the largest, fastest growing companies the world has ever seen. The current top 4 companies in the world, based on the Q3 2020 numbers, are Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google. Or more accurately with Google, it's Alphabet, the holding company of Google, YouTube, Waymo, Wing, and things like Google's X or Moonshot technologies. The current market cap for each of these companies are around $1 to $2 trillion each. Apple was founded way back in 1976, Microsoft in 1975. However, Google was founded as recent as 1998 and Amazon in 94. How is it that in less than 3 decades, Amazon has gone from non-existent to dominating the world, not only in general e-commerce with Amazon.com, but also other businesses under the Amazon.com umbrella that they either started or acquired along the way? These are things like the Amazon Prime paid subscription model. This today is almost a business of its own with 112 million subscribers and is adding to the success of many other Amazon products and services. Then we also have other businesses under this massive umbrella like Amazon Web Services or AWS in cloud computing, smart home technology with Amazon Alexa or Echo, ebooks or e-readers with Amazon Kindle, video with Amazon Prime Video, music with Amazon Prime Music, television and film production with Amazon Studios competing with the likes of Netflix and Disney+, audiobooks with Audible.com, self-publishing book services with CreateSpace, the planned broadband satellite internet system with Kuiper Systems, smart home security with Ring, live streaming with Twitch, revamping the recently acquired Whole Foods and bringing this into the Amazon Prime ecosystem, and even things like a new cargo airline called Amazon Air for shipping exclusively Amazon packages around the world. I've left out so many things, the list really goes on here. So as mentioned, some of these were started from the ground up and others acquired, but whether they've been acquired or not, they undoubtedly do much, much better after they've been acquired by Amazon. Amazon just seems to have the magic touch. How and why is this? Now there are many reasons to this, but mainly I think it's the long-term philosophy Jeff Bezos had been setting with the company since 1994. Now based on recent numbers, Amazon has over 1 million employees, over 1 million. How can one person impact so many people to ensure his company keeps growing? Well, let me explain. Based on my research, it's clear to see that there are processes and cultural elements in place at Amazon today which allows for each business unit to operate as its own business, or its own startup if you will. This time around, I primarily went digging into these things, wanting to understand why this works at Amazon and whether it's going to continue working. And what I found is it really boils down to a few things, and I've bucketed these things into 3 categories: risk, strategy, and technology. Each of these have very specific areas and points to how Amazon executes, and I have examples and reasons I chose for each of these points. Covering each of these in detail should bring us to a decision on whether the company will keep growing past $3,000 a share, or if we should invest our hard-earned money somewhere else. So let's start with risk. The first point here is that Amazon takes its profits and reinvests almost everything, not worrying about the shareholder, but rather worrying about its customers and improving its products for its customers.
It took them about a year from that point to launch a website, which they launched back in May of this past year. And they launched that website, which is a very reasonable website. It's not as good as Amazon.com in any important respect, but it is a good first effort. And it pays, as Andy Grove has told countless audiences, to be paranoid. As I was discussing with we had dinner earlier tonight with a few of the people in the audience, and it pays to be humble and paranoid. Hard to be actually paranoid enough if you're not humble. And we were very worried about what what Barnes & Noble would be able to do with their purchasing power and their brand name. We decided instantly that we weren't going to let the purchasing power get in the way. So we were going to fund any purchasing power difference. So we would have the same prices no matter if our margins were lower. And then we would adopt a strategy of get big fast so that we could eventually level the playing field in terms of purchasing power. And that became a consistent focus of ours that we've articulated now to Wall Street and everybody else. And it's actually at this point quite a well understood strategy.
Way back in 1998, Jeff Bezos was talking about competing with Barnes & Noble, specifically how they would always keep prices the same or lower than Barnes & Noble, even if that means Amazon has a lower profit margin. This mindset is what brings you closer to your customers, so customers always know they're getting the same price or thereabouts if they go to Amazon and Amazon businesses. This is one of the key things that causes Amazon to thrive. If you relentlessly obsess about your customers, there's no way you can fail in the long run. And more about this customer obsession later. The next one I added to the risk bucket is a continued growth mindset.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Well, I'm hopeful that Amazon.com can continue to be a pioneer in electronic commerce and electronic merchandising. There are lots and lots of stories of companies that were pioneers and then disappeared from the face of the earth. VisiCalc is a great one that that entrepreneurs should have nightmares over. Their business was taken away by Lotus, and then of course the same thing happened to Lotus when Microsoft took their business away. So we are going to work like crazy to expand, not to defend the territory we have now, because I think that strategy wouldn't work. What happens if you just do that is that this is a scale business. This is a business that only works in large size because of their large fixed costs and and very low variable costs. And so what you need to do is have a business of a sufficient size so that you have the right purchasing power and the brand name that's self-sustaining. And really, I think if we work on that, combined with the discovery technology that I was talking about earlier, if we can do those two things in the next 5 years, that will be a huge success, and Amazon.com will all be able to be very proud of ourselves.
Other than reinvesting profit, Amazon also seems to reinvest in their people. Now, I've personally read about the narrative online that Amazon has a terrible work environment. But considering that there is more than 1 million people working at the company today, you're bound to have this in certain parts of the business. And also with more than 1 million people, there's probably also statistically a lot of people that are bound to complain as well. But I really feel like for the most part it's good and people are happy, especially with the next points coming up. So I did some further digging and went to the Amazon Jobs website. A few searches on this job site made it clear that Amazon is not just an e-commerce company, but mostly a technology company at the core. The number of open positions was really shocking, and we're not talking warehouse workers here. Here are some examples of the searches I did. So the keyword warehouse picked up 2,300 jobs. Software around 14,000. Developer 23,600. Business development around 20,000. The word manager 23,000 jobs. Executive assistant, 1,600 jobs, business analyst, 1,500, and even something as niche as robotics picked up 883 jobs. I then looked at the job categories, which was even more staggering. It included hundreds of roles in areas like machine learning, applied scientists in computer vision, robotics, and a ton of other niche tech areas. To add to this, Jeff Bezos was talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning being the future cornerstone of technology in 1998, and they've been hiring people in niche areas like there's no tomorrow. This cements the fact that Jeff Bezos started Amazon in 1994 because internet usage was surging 2,300% a year. That's what a growth mindset looks like. Focus on something that has an exponential growth curve and then really commit to it by bulking up with the most and best talented people available. And then it turns out they have a way to get people with an entrepreneurial mindset too. But more about this later in strategy. Talking about strategy, let's get to that area. The first point in strategy is the interview philosophy. Amazon focuses heavily on interviewing, and they have this concept where they try and raise the bar with every interview or every new hire.
I also think that corporate cultures are incredibly important, and they're one thing that can never be copied. Competitors can never copy a culture. Basically, when we are looking for people, we're looking for intense, hardworking, smart people who want to be part of what we're doing. So passion is a part of it. Just plain old smarts, sort of high IQ, brainy people. We really like that. And people who can hire other great people. When I interview somebody, I actually spend about a third of the interview asking them questions designed to ascertain whether or not they can hire great people. So it's sort of the meta interview, and that. Different businesses have different criteria, but in this business, we've reached an interesting inflection point where I would say 70% of the risk now to Amazon.com is execution risk. So it's inside the company. It's our ability to stumble. We've basically gotten past the point where 70 to 80% of the risk was external and where we needed a huge amount of luck to get to where we are now. Now, all we need is a clear, consistent vision and the ability to execute on it very, very well at high speed. And that second piece comes from having large numbers of talented employees with lots of executive bandwidth to help guide them. And so, individuals do not win. We're very lucky we have unarguably the most talented venture capitalist in the United States on our board. It's a guy named John Doerr. And John is very, very, all the time talks about the fact that teams win, individuals don't. And we have built a great management team and a great group of people underneath that. And if you look at companies like Microsoft, that's the main way that they've won too. If you look at all their assets, they've got more than $10 billion in cash in the bank. They've got an operating system, which is a virtual stranglehold on the industry. And I would say all those things are great, but the thing that really makes them such an awesome competitor, and the reason that they have the position they have today, is because they don't just have Bill Gates. They have 40 people at the top of that company who are smart and dedicated and hardworking. And if you look down below that sort of incredibly deep executive team, they've got more people that are waiting in the wings to take on that kind of responsibility. So we're trying to build that kind of team at Amazon.com. We've got a great start, and we do have 1,000 entrepreneurs at Amazon.com.
Again, in 1998, Jeff Bezos was talking about how hiring is key to Amazon. They hire people with a leadership and entrepreneurial mindset. Now, it's kind of obvious to do this, and I know from experience companies try and do this, but it seems like Amazon actually has a plan in place to get this done better than anybody else. And the important thing is they distribute the responsibility to all their employees. Included in this article that I found, they explain how they have people internally called bar raisers on interviews, and they make a decision on hiring with the hiring managers. This means that managers can't just hire someone to fill a spot. This person needs to raise the bar, and an independent person sits in on interviews and discussions to ensure that there isn't any bias, whether that's positive or negative. And during the interview process, they focus on things called the Amazon leadership principles. Now, I know most companies have a philosophy or some kind of mantra that they go by, but I haven't seen anything as detailed as these leadership principles. From what I found documented on the Amazon website, there are 14 of these leadership principles, and they really lay out what Amazon sees as traits that leaders have. Now, each one of these 14 leadership principles have an explanation of what they actually mean. I'm not going to go through that in this video, it's going to take way too much time, but to give you an idea, these leadership principles include things like customer obsession, ownership, invent and simplify, leaders are right a lot, learn and be curious, hire and develop the best, insist on the highest standards, think big, bias for action, frugality, earn trust, dive deep, have backbone, disagree and commit, and the last one, deliver results. This is a pretty extensive set of principles to live by, and I can imagine if Amazon wants to distribute responsibility within the business, it's really important that they hire people that live by some or all of these. And this definitely starts to paint a picture as to why Amazon is so successful in more than one business vertical. I again refer back to 1998 when Jeff Bezos was 4 years into building Amazon. He was talking about building a team companies like Microsoft have, and he mentioned that 1,000 entrepreneurs work at Amazon. And this brought me to the last of the three buckets, which is technology. These leadership principles and hiring standards seem to not only be for Amazon.com, but for all Amazon businesses. There's also a dedicated website to how Amazon Web Services, or AWS, Amazon's cloud computing business, also follows these principles. It talks about how they want leaders and people with a builder's mindset to help them innovate the future of cloud computing. AWS is one of Amazon's businesses that I feel is heavily undervalued and underestimated with regards to its size compared to the entire company. Here are some points on why I think so. In the 2020 Q3 earnings call, AWS was called as being responsible for 13% of Amazon's overall revenue of $70 billion for the quarter. But even though it's just 13%, it accounts for roughly 71% of Amazon's overall operating profits. For 13% of the operating revenue to be responsible for 71% of the operating profits is insane. And AWS is growing faster than Amazon.com is. This business is clearly key for Amazon, and based on my research, AWS is the largest cloud computing provider in the world. And this is not by a small margin, it's by a lot, with the only real competition coming from the likes of Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud. The market share numbers were difficult to find, and I've had to make a consensus call on it, but the rough numbers point to 31% market share for AWS, 20% market share for Microsoft Azure, and a mere 6% to Google Cloud. I just had to dig deeper into this business, so I then looked at reliability and uptime numbers for the top 3 cloud providers. And to my shock, it looks like AWS services are even more reliably built than Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud. Surveys done by cloud computing experts show that Azure has the most outages at around 1,934 hours of outage. Google ended second with 361 outage hours. And Amazon, or AWS, was leading in reliability with only 338 hours of outages. It's worth mentioning that these outage hours are not for the entire cloud computing platform, but for a single service at a time. So although 300 plus hours sounds like a lot, it's really only certain services. On top of that, my research also shows that AWS tops the list with regards to the number of services and features and has more highly customizable offerings. This is incredible considering that they're competing with the likes of Microsoft and Google, who are juggernauts in the technology space. How is this possible? It's ridiculous to think that Amazon is in front of companies like these in a pure technology space. How did this happen? I couldn't believe it until I stumbled upon the reason. Well, it turns out that Amazon just had the idea first. AWS started in 2006, Google Cloud started only in 2009, and Microsoft Azure only in 2010.
The problem with being an entrepreneur and undertaking a business initiative is that companies don't fail quickly. If they failed fast, that would be okay, because then you could try 20 times. But in fact, they take years and years to fail. They take, if you look at the failure statistics of startup companies, Very rare do they fail in the first year or two. It's usually 7, 8, 9 years. So it means that you're dedicating a significant percentage of your life to this thing, and you really want to make sure you've optimized, maximized the odds that you're going to be able to succeed.
This shows you the startup mindset mentality. Amazon is not afraid in entering highly competitive and contested markets. If they have a good idea, they run with it, and they're not afraid to fail quickly. So this video is getting pretty long already, so I'm going to get to my point here and kind of lay out my thoughts. I've personally been invested in Amazon since 2016, when the share price was around $600. Today, with the share price sitting at over $3,000, I've done more than a 5x on my investment, and that's only on the original funds that I put in. I've actually added to that over time. It's been an incredible ride and a great business for me to be invested in. And that's why I wanted to do some more research into the business, into things more than the financials, but also how they do things and why it's as successful as it is. And honestly, I just got further confirmation as to why Amazon is doing as well as it is and why it's been such a great stock to be invested in. I can see why Amazon keeps growing the way that it is and why Jeff Bezos is the richest man on the planet. He had a plan. He stuck to that plan, and he's not the type of person to hold things close to his chest, but rather diversifies the knowledge and experience throughout the company, hiring smart people and letting them do what they're supposed to be doing, running the business as best they can, innovating, having that entrepreneurial mindset and doing things for the customer, having the customer in mind all the time. That's why we see these great businesses and products and features and services come our way through the Amazon business. Now, I will always tell you, do your own research. I'm not a CPA. Don't go purely on my advice. But if I had to make the call on whether Amazon's going to grow to more than $3,000 and the $1.5-ish trillion business that it is today, my answer is absolutely a resounding yes, and I'll keep investing in this business as long as I can and where it makes sense. It's very rare that you get these golden opportunities to invest in companies that really keep growing for decades and decades. And Amazon is one of those companies for me. And those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you found this useful, please like this video and subscribe for weekly content. And as always, see you guys next time.